What's going on, everybody? I'm sitting down with Sam Humphries, the current writer of the Nightwing series. How you doing today?
Yo, what's up, dude? I'm doing great. How are you?
I I am doing fantastic, and I'm trying so hard not to just geek out all over you since you just came
Come
off of the Green
on,
Lantern
come
series,
on.
which I
We're just
adore, and I've talked to you guys
we're
about on the
just
channel.
having a chat, right?
We are. And thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'm really excited to dive in.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Well, I guess let's just jump into it. I've got my questions right here. And so for anybody who might not be caught up, what's this new era of Nightwing all about?
Well, we got myself writing Nightwing, taking over Nightwing from Tim Seeley, and Tim Seeley just delivered an absolute, I've been calling it a hang it in the rafters run on the character, an all-time Hall of Fame run on Dick Grayson. And so I'm taking over on writing duties. We got Bernard Chang taking over on art, and we're calling it Nightwing the Untouchable.
Okay. So how is he gonna not be touched?
Well, a lot of people want to touch his butt all the time.
That is very true.
We're not going to lean into that, but Nightwing, the Untouchable, is a story that digs into Dick Grayson's present and past. So we've got him in Bloodhaven as Nightwing, and we've also got some segments that take place when he was Robin. We've also got some segments that take place when he was Dick Grayson, college student at Hudson University. And, in all three eras, we explore the ways in which, as a crime fighter, you want to be untouchable. You know what I mean? You want to be incorruptible. You want to be faster than the bad guy. You want to be ahead of your adversaries. But being untouchable it can be a double-sided sword as well, As a human being, you don't always want to be untouchable. You want to be able to connect with people, and you want to be able to have those human relationships. And he's got a mentor who has a mixed record in that regard. And now you've got Dick Grayson in Bloodhaven, and he's facing this bad guy, this new bad guy called the Judge that we got going on, and it's bringing up a lot of feelings for him. So being untouchable is a good and a bad thing for Dick Grayson.
Well, what can you tell me about the Judge? I've read a couple of the issues that you guys provided me in advance, but for anybody who isn't so lucky, what's his deal?
Yeah, the Judge is a brand new character. He is the bad guy of this arc, but he has a history of Dick Grayson that we are showing in some flashback sequences, like I talked about with Robin. When Dick was Robin, he encountered the Judge. When Dick was a college student, he encountered the Judge, and now the Judge is back. This is a cold case that has been haunting Dick because he was not able to bring down the Judge, not just once, but twice. And everything that the Judge has done since is weighing on Dick's conscience. Everybody that the Judge has killed is crushing Dick's shoulders. So this is a bad guy that Dick feels very strongly that he must take down by any means necessary. But it's also a bad guy that strikes at the core of Dick. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't take down a bad guy and he goes off and kills other people, like, what good are you as a crime fighter, right? So
right, and also kind of plays on where does his place in Bloodhaven?
Exactly, it digs up a lot of feelings for Dick, and that's what I like. It's not just about catching the bad guy and putting him in prison. It's about the feelings that it digs up in Dick as well.
Okay, well, so what influences
the Judge, I will say, is no, my bad, but the Judge is a very mysterious character. He has a backstory, sort of teasing out very slowly. But what I will say, I can't say too much about him, but what I will say is that he is a uniquely Bloodhaven bad guy. This is a character who could not come from Metropolis. He could not come from Gotham City. He belongs to Bloodhaven. And that poses a lot of challenges for Dick trying to take him down.
Okay. I noticed that the Judge kind of looks like Zach Galifianakis from The Hangover. Any correlation there?
No, you're not wrong, but I never thought about it like that.
Just actually, and everything. That's the first thing that jumped to my mind.
Yeah, now you mention it, like, you're not wrong. He's kind of like a little slimmer, more dapper Zach Galifianakis from The Hangover, right?
Yeah.
Some of the I'm trying to remember, but when Bernard was designing the characters, some of the people I sent his way, one was Father John Misty. You know who that guy is?
I don't. Please enlighten me.
He's a singer. He's a songwriter, and he bears some resemblance to the Judge, and also Brad Pitt's character in The Counselor. You ever see The Counselor?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I see that now.
Crazy movie, right? What everybody out there listening, watching, it's worth checking out, but you gotta be prepared. It's a very weird movie. So those were the kind of visual cues that I sent to Bernard. He kind of whipped it up and put the Bernard spin on it, and the Judge looks great.
He really does. He really does.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned some of the influences of the Judge's character design, but has there been any influences on your writing specifically for this Nightwing book?
Yeah, I mean, with the time I had, it would have been impossible to read every Dick Grayson story, but I did do a deep dive. I got my Dick Grayson shelf over here. I don't think you can see it, which is good because there's some spoilers in there, but I read the new Teen Titans, the Marv Wolfman, George Perez run, which of course is a fantastic, legendary run. And particularly Who is Donna Troy was a big influence on me in that. And I went back and I read some of Dick's earliest Golden Age appearances with Batman and Gotham City. And some of the stuff I'd never read before, some of it I haven't read in years, and I really loved it. And particularly the Dick Sprang stuff. He was just a fantastic Bat artist, and that era really influenced the third chapter, which you haven't read yet, but is actually being drawn by living legend Klaus Janson.
Okay.
So we have Klaus on our side, and we went back into that's the issue where we delve back into a lot of Dick's history as Robin, and it's sort of a grittier, more crime-oriented tale for an issue because it really plays into Klaus's strengths. And then the fifth chapter is drawn by Phil Jimenez, the master, and Phil doing what he does well. That was the issue that Who is Donna Troy really influenced, and that's the issue where we see Dick Grayson as a college student encountering the Judge and trying to solve the mystery of how to bring him down.
Okay, so you've been reading a whole lot of everything, which makes a lot of sense considering that you're dealing with both the far past, the pseudo past, and then the present. So you're dealing with the whole spectrum of Dick Grayson's life.
Absolutely. And what else? I know I'm gonna like Black Mirror and the Grant Morrison stuff with Dick as Batman. Tim Seeley's run, of course. A lot of the older collection books, like I have like the greatest Batman stories ever told from the 80s, the greatest Joker stories ever told from the 80s. A lot of those kind of books gave me a nice cross section. There's one great story I found. I guess it would probably be a Silver Age story, but it was called The Boy Who Hated Robin, and it was all about basically this kid who didn't like Robin, and Dick was so tormented by the idea that one person didn't like him that he had nightmares about it. And that just says so much to me about who Dick Grayson is.
I feel like we can all relate, though. So since you bring that up, how do you deal with criticism of any of your works? Because like I said, I'm a major fan, but there's been some work of yours that I haven't been the greatest. Avengers AI wasn't necessarily for me.
How dare you, Drake? Unbelievable. This interview is over. Can't stand this. Criticism is just it's part of the gig. It's not just part of like comics gig, but it's part of just making shit and being a creator. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I swear on here?
If you want to.
Fuck yeah. It's just kind of part of the bargain if you want to make stuff, whether you're making movies or you're knitting or whatever, however you want to express yourself. And most of us, if we want to make stuff, we can't exist in a vacuum. We want to share it with other people. We want to share a point of view or a vision with other people. And the bargain there is that you may run into people who don't like it. and it's not for them, and that's okay because you know, you just can't win them all. There's a lot of artists I love. I don't like all their movies or the books or whatever, and that's fine. And you can't take it personally because it's not personal. They don't
Makes
know
total
you.
sense.
They just know your work. So if they don't like it, you can't win them all. You move on. Hey, we've all got more comics to make, more books to write, more clothes to knit, however you express yourself. The best thing you can do is just focus on doing that.
That's a really good way to look at it.
You too
So,
with your interviews. I know you're
yeah.
on YouTube, and YouTube commenters can be very harsh, Drake, but you do a
Oh
good
yeah.
job. And when they criticize you, you just focus on doing the next video.
Well, see, I feel like I'm a little bit like Dick Grayson because I can get all the praise in the world, but then there's that one guy. That's the one that sticks with me.
That's it's true, right? Just the
It
one
really
guy,
does.
like just like sticks in your heart. I mean, that's what the judges like for Dick too. He's not the one guy who got away, but he's the one guy who got away who really just it just strikes Dick to the core. You know, if I can't take this guy down, what am I doing? For Dick Grayson, it's like, if you aren't a crime fighter, what the hell are you?
Yeah, and it's not even like a Batman situation where the bad guys will go to Arkham and they'll break out because at least Batman did get him at some point. This is a guy that he has never been able to capture.
Yes, exactly. And hey, if I was talking to Dick, I'd say, you know who else hasn't been able to capture him? Batman. So don't be so hard on yourself.
That's real
But
fair, especially considering that Batman was with him whenever the judge first appeared. Back when he was Robin.
exactly. And but you know, I'm not Dick's friend. I'm his writer, and my job is to get him in trouble, not console him. So
That's a very morbid way to look at it, but makes so much sense.
yeah.
Well, okay, so we brought up Batman. What makes a Nightwing book so special from just a regular Bruce Wayne Batman book? Like, what does it bring to the table that you can't get in Gotham?
You know what? Dick is all about legacy. He is a character who dates back to, you know, we think about Robin as, oh, he's first there was Batman, and then later, Robin came along. But Dick Grayson's been around for the vast majority of the history of DC Comics. And not only is he a longtime character, but if you are Batman and you are Superman, you look to Dick Grayson, and when you see who Dick Grayson has become as a character and as a human, you go like, what we're doing here as crime fighters, as superheroes, this is okay. This is we're doing the right thing. We may get confused, we may have our doubts, but look at Dick Grayson. He grew up in this life. He had nothing. His parents died. He grew up in a circus, and now it's 2017 and circuses are out of date and shutting down. And but you know, Dick Grayson is kind of a sign or a symbol that this life that they all lead, it's worth living and can produce really stellar human beings.
But this is where it gets a little bit complicated, though, is because now the judge is having me even doubt that. So it kind of strikes at who he is at his very core.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I would love to write an issue where Dick just feels great about himself for 20 pages. I think that would be really fun, but there's not a lot of conflict in there, and drama comes from conflict, and you know, we gotta get people interested. We gotta sell books, so
You can't keep him too happy for too long.
Nah.
Well, okay, so you mentioned that the judge is a very Bloodhaven villain, that you can't get him in Metropolis, you can't get him in Gotham. So what do you plan on doing with Bloodhaven as its own sort of character? What are you planning on doing to shape Bloodhaven into more of its own unique identity?
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun with Bloodhaven. When I say we, I of course mean me and artist Bernard Chang. Bernard, one of the many amazing things about collaborating with Bernard is that we both live in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. We're one subway ride from each other, so we can get together and talk about stuff and have ideas and collaborations and build on things in a way that might be more difficult if we were doing it from different cities or opposite sides of the world. And one of the great things that Bernard brought to the table is we were talking about Bloodhaven and how Bloodhaven is a casino town. It's a gambling town, but it's also an old whaling town, right? Mm-hmm. So this neon revolution, the casinos that have swooped in and rescued the economy of Bloodhaven, they haven't rescued everyone. Like the rich are getting richer, but there's an old town. There's the town that's not neon and glass. There's the town that's still brick and iron. There's people getting left behind. The more we were talking about it, Bernard was like, I don't know if Bloodhaven is Vegas. I don't know if it's Atlantic City. He's like, I think it's more Macau. You know Macau?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Macau in China has also a port town, has had its own sort of neon revolution, has had casinos come in and revitalize the entire town, not just its economy, but its standing in the world. Excuse me. And so Bernard really embraced the crazy, wild, out of control architecture that has sprung up in Macau. People who are watching this, if you've never seen some of the buildings in Macau, you gotta go to Google image search right now and just type in Macau and prepare to have your mind blown.
We've seen a lot of those influences like in the Chinatown in Bloodhaven that we saw in the previous run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. The style of buildings, it's like it's like buildings on steroids, but the steroids is money and out of control development. So not only is there the visual aspect, but like I said, we're showing different phases of Dick's life, and through that we're also showing different phases of Bloodhaven. Okay. So when we show Dick as Robin, we're showing the first time he ever came to Bloodhaven, and we're showing what Bloodhaven looked like back then. And when we show Dick Grayson as a college student, the second time he encounters the judge, we're not just showing what Dick was like as a college student, we're showing what Bloodhaven looked like back then. We have a whole timeline in a history that's not just developments in the city, but for each artist we're working with, whether it's Bernard or Klaus Janson or Phil Jimenez, we have a timeline of what the buildings look like, how much development there is. We have a new landmark in Bloodhaven called the Justice Tree that's actually hundreds of years old, but plays a pivotal role in the story. So it's been a lot of fun to build out that part of Bloodhaven, the history of Bloodhaven.
So Untouchable isn't just the story of Nightwing, it's not just a story of the judge, but it's also a story of Bloodhaven as a city.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
Okay. Well, what villains are you excited to have in this book? Like, clearly we've talked about the judge to death, but I mean, I want to talk about the League of Limousine Assassins. You knew that was going to be
yes.
a big deal.
The League of Limousine Assassins was a crazy idea that just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And to me, at first, the League of Limousine Assassins was, I wanted to do like a weird 60s crime gang, like the Guerrilla Gang from old Batman comics, right? And the Guerrilla Gang was, they're just a bunch of like criminals with gorilla masks on. But there's something that's really weird and really fun about that. So I had this idea of the League of Limousine Assassins because in a town like Bloodhaven, where there's a lot of rich people throwing around a lot of money, there's going to be a lot of limousines. So if you're a League of Assassins, driving around in limousines is a great way to just blend in and not get caught,
It's like the white van of Bloodhaven.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. It is the white van of Bloodhaven. So I just started thinking through this idea and fleshing it out. And then I was like, wow, this is something that kind of has some legs. And I figured out some connections to the judge and to Bloodhaven and to where the story is going and Nightwing. And I can't say too much about it, but the League of Limousine Assassins are not just throwaway villains. They are sticking around for the duration of Untouchable.
Well, I do want to talk about some throwaway villains, but before that, is the League of Limousine Assassins related to the League of Assassins, the Ra's al Ghul Institution, anything like that, or is it just a similar name?
They are not, yeah, but it's more than a similar name. It's kind of like a play on that. It's kind of like I don't want to say a parody on that because they're the League of Assassins is a great gang of villains, but it's kind of like taking a left turn, if you will, from the League of Assassins.
You mentioned that the League of Limousine Assassins aren't a throwaway villain, but from the previous run, a throwaway villain made a comeback in the form of the Pigeon, who, for many people who aren't familiar with her, was a Hostess Cupcake villain from an ad way back in the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
I know that it is incredibly out of left field, but are there any small-time one-off villains that you're interested in playing with or bringing back, Hostess or otherwise?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
That's about all I can tell you right now.
Fair enough. So I guess it's
I
safe
can
to
tell you
assume
that
based by between the lines we can see something like that.
yeah, well, I mean, that's part of the fun of playing in a shared universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially one with so much history, you can really dig in and find some forgotten gems and bring them out and show them in a new light and play with them and have a lot of fun. It's part of the gig, so I absolutely always, whatever title I do, I always look to do that.
Okay, this might be
The
overstepping my
hostess ads are a little far. I don't know if I could find anyone from there, but
Sure.
definitely some forgotten characters from Dick Grayson's past.
Okay. Now, I know this might be overstepping my boundaries, but the judge, he is a wholly original character and not anything that we've seen in the past. I've done my Googling and I've combed through the wikis.
I'll say that. I don't want to like throw anyone down like a wild goose chase, but he's a wholly original character. He's not a disguised version. There's no clues to him being another character, so don't go down any crazy rabbit holes. It's not like he's gonna rip off his mask and he's gonna be the Penguin or whatever. He is the judge, and his backstory is the mystery, and it's a lot of fun to bring out.
It's great to see Dick going into a detective role more like the Bat family proper, which I feel a lot of writers tend to neglect, that Batman is the world's greatest detective, and he's raised a bunch of little detectives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dick, I always look at him kind of on three levels. He's a superhero, he's a crime fighter, and he's a detective. And certainly those things overlap a lot, especially if you're telling a really good story. But I wanted all three of those aspects to be solidly represented in Nightwing the Untouchable. And we definitely see some detective stuff throughout the arc, but especially in the 5th chapter, issue 39, drawn by Phil Jimenez. That is our detective heavy issue. It's great. Phil's already turning pages, and they just look gorgeous. His layouts are incredible. The way he draws Dick is so good. Just the emotion there, like it's so strong, and it's a really great a great issue in the arc.
All right. Well, I want to talk about your previous run on in DC for a little bit, because obviously, yeah, Jessica Cruz hanging there in the background.
Yeah, Jessica Cruz Pinata, absolutely.
I love it. I love it so much. You've also done a lot of work for Marvel in their space sector with the Star-Lord books, and so space is something that you're not a stranger to. But how is your approach different when writing a more Earth-centric character like Nightwing as opposed to grand cosmic adventures?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if I have like an answer for that. That's not super pithy. The pithy answer is like, well, you don't send him into space. But I know that's not what you're getting at. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of similarities how you approach these characters, whether they're in space or not. You want to find something that's relatable, some emotional core to these characters that you can really latch onto and tell stories around, and people can relate to it. Like Jessica Cruz having anxiety, and even if you don't have like a full-on anxiety disorder, you can understand anxiety. So I mean, you really start with that, and then kind of spin a tale out from there. For a character like Nightwing, that's more street level. Like you want to find an angle that's more crime oriented than super crime oriented, I guess, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I'm making up terms as I go along here.
Sure. No, don't worry about it.
But the same rules apply, which is that every bad guy is the hero of his own story, and you want a bad guy to have understandable motivation. You want to have stakes so that fight scenes aren't just punch them up and who's going to get hurt the most. It's, there's some really strong things at stake for both characters.
Well, do you feel like you can't get away with some of the really crazy stuff when you're not dealing with space and aliens, or do you feel like you can have equal levels of crazy?
You can have equal levels of crazy. You just got to take different roads to get there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely thinking about the judge here, and there's a lot of things about the judge that I can't say right now, but I'll cite this: a great Batman story, Dark Knight, Dark City, by Peter Milligan and drawn by Kieran Dwyer. You know the one I'm talking about?
I do believe. I've read a lot of Batmans. It's hard to pick everything out, but
for sure. Absolutely. Classic Batman story. Scott Snyder is really mining a lot of that stuff in a great way for metal. It's a good sort of like metal prologue book to read. But that has some crazy ideas in it, some crazy wild ideas that go back to the founding of Gotham City and supernatural beings. I believe that's the first appearance of Barbados, the Bat God, the Dark Bat God.
I'm glad finally I hear somebody pronounce it. That's great.
Barbados?
I've heard it Barbados.
It's not like the island in the Caribbean. That's the rule. It's the other way.
Okay.
And secret societies and all that kind of stuff, but it's still a really strong Batman story. You're never taken out of being like, this isn't what Batman does. I don't pick this up. All right, I didn't pick this up to see this kind of story. And I try to take the same sort of approach to Nightwing the Untouchable.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
This question is a little more involved, so I'm going to have to read this basically verbatim. Okay. So DC is pushing Nightwing to be a bigger and more active member of the A-list hero properties. So what role do you really think that you and DC as a whole want him to fill? Because for a while he was B tier, but now he's becoming more and more one of the figureheads of the DC Comics universe as a whole.
Absolutely. I mean, B tier is in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? Sure. So Nightwing embodies so much of what makes the DC universe great. He is a strong character. He has very clear, strong motivation, and he's connected to legacy. So I think having a character like Dick is important because he's a character you can grow up with. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Batman is always an adult. Flashbacks or whatever accepted. But if you go back and read Dick's story, if you start as a kid and Dick is a kid, you can grow up with him and you can see yourself through Dick growing up in the DC universe. And that's a really powerful character to have amongst people like Superman and Wonder Woman.
So it sounds like you're saying that Dick is more like the heart of the DC universe, that in a kind of Harry Potter sense, you grow up with him and it's somebody that can always be with you. And he seems like more of like a moral center as opposed to like the guy in charge, like Superman.
I think everything you said about him is right, but I think he can also be the guy in charge like Superman.
Oh, yeah, you think so? Like more of like the Titans role?
Well, I'm the guy writing him, so I'm a little.
That's fair. But... I'm just curious. What's your reasoning for that?
Dick is a natural-born leader, and there are stories or people out there who will say that Dick. One of the things that Dick can do better than Batman is be a leader, and I think that's definitely true. And I think if you can be a better leader than Batman, then you at least have a chance at being a better leader than Superman or Wonder Woman. Is he always going to be a better leader than Superman or Wonder Woman? Maybe not, probably not, but he at least has the potential to be a better leader. You know what I mean?
That makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. And he has experience leading one of the greatest teams in DC history, the Teen Titans.
And the Titans still going on.
That's right, and the Titans now.
Are they going to be playing any kind of role in the Nightwing series at all, or are they just completely hands off?
Not completely hands off. That sounds like we're quarantined, and it's not like that. But
Okay.
you know, we're in a shared universe, and we always talk about stuff and possible storylines and ideas. But right now, nothing on the immediate horizon. But there's always a possibility, you know.
Okay. I feel like that gets through most of the questions that I had, but I do want to end on a couple. One a little silly, and then one a little more serious.
Great. Let's bring it on.
So you just came off of Green Lanterns.
Yes.
If you could give Dick Grayson a Lantern Corps ring, what would it be and why?
Ooh, great question. If I could give him one, or which one would he get?
Let's hear both. That sounds great.
I feel like he would get the blue ring because he represents a lot of hope in the DC universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, according to the laws of the DCU, that is the one he would get.
Okay. What would you give him? Because it sounds like there's a little bit of a difference there.
I'd give him a red ring.
Oh, really?
Because I feel like Dick has a lot of anger that he has yet to work out.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So how is that going to play into the story if there's all this hidden rage?
Wait and see, bud.
Okay.
Wait and see. That's all I can tell you. It's definitely something that is lurking in the background.
Is that why he's running a cross-training gym? Maybe as like a little bit of an outlet?
He's running a cross-training gym because, yeah, maybe there's a little part of his anger in there. He wants to take it out on his clients. But he's running a cross-training gym because he's probably the best trainer in the entire DC universe. I mean, wouldn't you want to be trained by him? I would.
I definitely would, yeah.
That was an idea that came from our fantastic editor, Chris Conroy, who threw that out there. And he's like, well, I don't know. And I was like, that's exactly what we're doing. That is exactly what we're doing.
I dig it. I really do dig it. Well, the last question I wanted to end on was something a little more personal. And it's, what do you want this series to be in terms of the broader Nightwing mythos?
Man, that's a great question that I purposely do not have an answer for.
Okay.
Because
so kind of like obviously you've written things out and you have a plan for it.
Yeah, I mean, my point of view, and this may not be every creator's point of view, but my point of view is that when you are writing a character like Nightwing, who's been around for decades, even a character like Spider-Man, who's been around for maybe half that amount of time, the legacy of these characters has grown to a point where you can easily intimidate yourself into inaction if you let it. And I think that the number one thing, at least for me, if I want to get up in the morning and write comics every day, I have to focus on the story. I have to focus on the arc in front of me, the issue that has to be written next. I have to focus on the character, not an icon or a legacy or anything like that. I have to connect with this character as a human being. Otherwise, I'm going to write really shitty stories, you know? Like, I think it's a great question you ask, but ultimately it's not up to me. It's up to basically everybody else. And all I can do is write the best, most emotionally honest story I can about Dick Grayson and let the chips fall where they may, you know?
That's really, really awesome. And yeah, I really do like that approach a lot.
Otherwise, man, I'd be too scared to get out of bed. I can't think about all those all those classic Dick Grayson stories, all those amazing creators and then shit. I got, you know, there's not an insignificant amount of courage that it takes to sit down and face a blank piece of paper, and I can't psych myself out like that. Can't do it.
Well, that's very fair. Thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes and peeling back the veil a little bit. I think that at least I personally have learned a whole lot from this interview.
All right, man. Thank you for doing it. I had a blast. It's been a lot of fun.
Problem. you have anything that you'd like to plug, social media or otherwise?
Yeah, y'all can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Sam Humphries. I don't know if you're gonna have the graphic. I'm just be like at Sam Humphries.
There will be one now.
That's the best place to follow me online. And definitely follow me in the next couple days because we're gonna have a lot more Nightwing previews and exclusives and all sorts of stuff coming up.
All right. Thanks, man.